Welcome, everybody. Good morning. It's great to hear you, and hopefully, we will hear you doing our webinar. Just to kick off, I am wondering if you have wondered that the primary cause of data loss in businesses is the human error, according to Corporate Finance Institute. But don't worry. There's a silver lining to it, although it sounds pretty somber. If it's human error, it means that we humans can also fix it. Welcome, everybody, to our data security webinar, during which we will secure your 635 Copilot journey and with our experts today. So you can already maybe put a happy face in our chat if you're with us to greet our experts. Alexander Värä, Global Technical Services Sales Director from Crayon, and Uros Babic, Security Team Lead at Crayon. Good to see you. Everybody's in good moods today. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we will learn about the risks coming from using such AI tools as Copilot. We will also see how unaware employees, unfortunately, sometimes overshare sensitive data. And we'll also see how the aware cyber criminals take over your sensitive data. But don't worry, we're not scaring you because we will also show you some data loss prevention policies. And hopefully, data classification and sensitivity labels will be the new buzzwords in your office. And actually, already here, we would like to let you know that this will be an interactive webinar. We will have a Q&A session with each of our experts after their presentation and at the end, so do ask questions. We already have a first question for you that we're putting in the chat about sensitivity labels, if you actually use them, or maybe you even don't know what they are. If you don't know, let us know. If you use them, also let us know in the chat, so we know and we keep this webinar quite interactive. So we will start off with some theoretical background that Alexander will bring to you, and then we will jump into a live demo so you know where and how to use data prevention strategies. Okay, so going to our first speaker, Alexander, I assume that our listeners, if they know Copilot, and I assume they do, and you're already using Copilot, so I'm sure you are summarizing emails, you're summarizing meetings, you're writing emails with Copilot, you're doing already a lot of things with Copilot. So our first speaker will be here to make you aware of the risks associated with using such tools as Copilot. Also, he'll tell you about the vulnerabilities in Microsoft. And the good news is he will tell you where you can secure it and how to secure it. So, Alexander Värä, your turn.
Oh, thank you for a great introduction, Alexandra. Such a pleasure to have you hosting these meetings. Thank you so much. So yes, hi everyone from my side as well. Welcome to this webinar. Thank you for joining. My name is Alex, leading the cybersecurity commercial efforts here at Crayon globally. And yeah, so wanted to share with you a couple of things. First and foremost, where are we with Copilot? And then also, where are we with security or securing your Copilot journey? What are the main drivers behind it? And also, what are, let's say, the low-hanging fruits of using your, or let's say, rolling out your Copilot instances responsibly and safely? So without further ado, let's jump into our, let's say, first let's warm-up topic, AI adoption. So if you think about where we are with AI in general, we are at the very beginning of these, let's say, AI innovations. Think about Copilot. How old is Copilot? Copilot is roughly 1 year old. I believe it's 1 year and 1 or 2 weeks old at the moment. So we're talking about a new disruptive technology. And where we are in adopting those, we have been playing around with them. So organizations have been trying out piloting Copilots, Chat GPTs, whatever. And when it comes to wide-scale deployments, we're at the very first steps. So if we consider some statistics, about 6% are currently considering to deploying Copilot on a wide scale. Obviously, Copilot have been used already in organizations for about a year, half a year, usually in management teams or some restricted groups. And now first adoptions are happening. And there are some concerns. One of those concerns is definitely cybersecurity or data security, to be more specific. This is something that you hear most of the time. And additionally, a lot of the concern comes from data management now that companies actually understand what is it that we are doing, what is Copilot, not just what the value does Copilot bring, but how does it work, what data does it access. And for example, here I have two snippets from different papers, and one of them is actually related to Australian government, where they have decided that although Copilot is a great tool, their information management was not that great. And as an example, you had SharePoint with a lot of data that is very old, unlabeled, unclassified, and now people are able to search for that data by accident if they have access to it. So if your access policy is not on par, then basically you're talking about security by obscurity. So a lot of data and hoping that people will not be able to find it. So from that perspective, that is an issue that everyone has been struggling at for the longest time, but no one really had the possibility or the resources nor the time to get a hold of this, let's say, data management issue. So it's not a Copilot issue, it's a data management issue. And obviously, what it causes is delays. It causes delays in adoption. Sometimes it causes canceling of wide-scale adoption. So Copilot installations are then used, continue to be used in restricted groups, but it doesn't have to be that way. So there are multiple ways how you can secure your Copilot journey, and we will go through those both in theory and in action by Uros. But the most important thing is to understand the challenges. And as we just touched, the challenge, yes, it is data governance and overprivileged users. This has been there forever. Companies are generating data more than ever nowadays. It doesn't get very well, let's say, classified. It gets indexed by Copilot as long as it is on in your Office 365 cloud at the very minimum. And that then if you have, even by accident, which is most of the cases, overprivileged users, then basically when querying, they will have access to the Copilot or Copilot results. And it seems that, unfortunately, my internet clicker has now been disconnected for some reason. So that is a message to our admin. But the other thing that really is an issue is the privileges themselves. And by privileges themselves, I'm talking about statistically single-digit users use all of their privileges that they have. So by default, they have been assigned way too permissive privileges, way too many privileges that they do not need. And this is an identity and access management issue that basically is, let's say, again, there is nothing new there. It has been there forever. And that is let's say, the challenge of the governance, which is now reflected in everyone's Copilot journey. The other piece is the security and innovation, which basically means that you have issues with security posture management sometimes. So thinking about how your identity security, email security, device security, how they all tied to how they are tied together into one solution, into security posture that includes proper guardrails. So that is something where we see a lot of deficiency, and that is again reflected to the Copilot journey, because at the end of the day, if an attacker gets any type of access token from the user, that attacker will be able to then access that user on behalf of that user. They will be able to bypass your multi-factor authentication, and then also access Copilot prompt. So that is, again, something, and let's say it's an underlying issue that have been there for the longest time. It's now just reflected in Copilot usage. And the last but not least is the innovation piece. We are talking about a completely new disruptive technology, basically meaning technology that is less than 2 years old, a little bit over 1 year old. And now within this 1 year of being generally available, they have been already Copilot specific attacks discovered. And those include, for example, direct and indirect prompt injections, basically meaning that you are able to, for example, create Copilot queries from an email that is unread, as an example. And also something called ASCII smuggling, basically meaning that you are able to exfiltrate data from Copilot results via link. You just need user to press the link. And this is something, luckily, that it's been now fixed or have been fixed by Microsoft. So as you can see, the technology has been there now for 1 year. Within that 1 year, there have been technology-specific attack use cases, and Microsoft has been great at fixing them and working all the time of fixing any found vulnerabilities. But that is just something that comes with new technology. You will have technology-specific attacks, and we're talking about technology that is 1 year old. So will there be more vulnerabilities found in any AI technology? For sure. But it's also, and it's good to understand that. It just basically means from pragmatic perspective is that your security teams needs to be aware that, hey, we have now AI, we are using AI and tracking those vulnerabilities, tracking ways how your AI technologies, including Copilot, how can they be exploited either from the inside of the organization or from the outside organization, and have proper guardrails to note that and making sure that they are on track of what vulnerabilities are fixed by the vendors and whatnot. So this is something that is good to understand either way. Comes with every new technology, except that now in this case, this piece of technology is extremely critical. So it has to have emphasis from security team as well. So when going forward, basically, if you think about what are the, let's say, attack trends, how can we let's say exploit Copilot? So there are a couple ways. And again, apologies that we don't have the slides available, so I will just have to walk you through them. But it seems that now we have some form of slides appearing, which is great. So if we're looking at the attacks by themselves, or how attacks happen, you have two ways of doing them: from the inside or inside organization, or from the outside. And as an insider, it can be done accidentally or maliciously by just asking something vague. You ask something vague from the Copilot, and by accident, you will receive a privileged information. And that is not an accident by the Copilot. It's accident of not having proper either data management policy or too much privilege assigned to a user. And this is, again, very typical case where you have, for example, a decade of using SharePoint Online, and you have terabytes of data stored there across SharePoint. And all of that data is now indexable. Now, then what happens is that once that information gets shared, user might not understand that some of the information is privileged. And I will have actually a personal case of that in a moment. But that data can be then shared outside of your organization, plainly by accident. And this is basically what we mean when talking about oversharing. I have an example. So back in the day, I was working with a cybersecurity company as a partner. And I have received for example, there was a discussion about some of the company's clients that would be interested in our services. And it was okay for the clients to share their email addresses with me so I can get in touch. We can basically organize an event. So what I have received from the cybersecurity vendor was an Excel spreadsheet with their names, with their email addresses, with their phone numbers. as well as their food preferences. So I have received private information, that's one. And then I have received their food preferences. And their food preferences, for example, stated things like kosher, halal, etc. So I also understood their religion. So that is a very good example of oversharing. And that was done by accident by a cybersecurity company that they did not have a proper, let's say, data classification in place. And their salesperson accidentally shared that entire list with me. So that became obviously a privacy violation. We notified the cybersecurity company, and they obviously hopefully notified their customers as well. So this is an example of oversharing, completely not malicious, but yet again, a couple of regulations got broken there. Then there is another case, or actually how those can be secured then is a couple of ways. One is the DLP policy that gets triggered if there, for example, is a document that is marked, for example, confidential, and as part of that data loss prevention policy, confidential information should be accessible only by a certain limited group of people. So then that, let's say, privileged information would not be even shared to the user. But then also in addition to that, when that information gets shared outside of organization, if it's a privileged information, you have proper data loss prevention policy in place, that would trigger a data loss prevention control, and obviously it would be, which is blocking mode. So then that, for example, privileged information would be blocked. So this is how you secure those type of accidental oversharings. Then on the other side, you have, as you can see, the attackers that can, for example, compromise a user via email compromise, which is the, let's say, number one attack vector today. So someone gets phished, goes to a website, tries to log in, which looks like a Microsoft login page, and basically their credentials got stolen. And when Entra ID basically gives back an access token, that token gets replayed as well. So you are able to, as an attacker, you're now able to utilize that access token to enter organizations' resources. So you can impersonate yourself as a user whose access token you have just stolen. And this is the, let's say, the most use case that we see in our security operations center, for instance. This type of attack, it's called attacker in the middle. So what gets done is that once an attacker gets a foothold into the customers or into the victim's, let's say, account or environment, that attacker can start prompting as well. And they can utilize different types of prompting techniques. One of them is just basically, again, doing something vague, like summarize my group's key projects to understand what those are, and then asking provide files and emails as reference. And then you can download those files, those key files, directly from Copilot, because it provides you those files and emails and whatever conversations as reference. You can also ask Copilot to find your password file, for example, or GitHub access. How do I get my GitHub access? I forgot, right? And it will help you. And because you already have the identity stolen, chances are that you're able to access, for example, if you're a developer, GitHub as well. Now, there are multiple ways to block this and to prevent this from happening. And on the left-hand side, you will see there are email security capabilities. There are many, let's say, tools on the market that do those, including Microsoft. So in Microsoft words, it's anti-spam and anti-phishing policies, and then safe links and safe attachments, so detonation of links when you press them, when you try to access something. Then also when it comes to your, again, data loss prevention policy, same idea. If a user tries to access something that is let's say confidential or that they should not have access to, then basically you have the possibility to trigger that DLP policy, and that data information will not be shared. Also, you can have a DLP policy that says no file should be downloaded outside of my SharePoint or outside of my Office 365 environment. So even if the information is valid, it is provided to you as a snippet by Copilot when downloading the actual files which have more let's say, more data, that again gets blocked by a data loss prevention policy. And now, as of, if I recall correctly, 3 weeks ago, the green stopping sign, as you can see, as of 3 weeks ago, Microsoft has announced a way to utilize conditional access policy to access Copilot. So this is, again, we're talking about 1-year-old technology, how to secure it. It all gets developed all the time. And now the most recent thing is that you can leverage your conditional access policy to, for example, require low-risk user with a compliant device. So you would have to have a good user hygiene, or let's say that the user most likely is not compromised, determined by Microsoft, and the user should have a compliant device that it actually uses to access Copilot. And if either of those are not matched, then the access can be blocked, access token can get revoked, and then basically how it will reflect the users that when the real user tries to access Copilot, then basically they would get prompted, or they will be asked to run through the MFA process. So it's not that big of a user experience impact either. It's a very strong block, or a very strong defensive mechanism, which is now, or conditional access policy, which is now extended to also using Copilot. So as you can see, there are many ways to secure Copilot, and all of that is again tied back to your zero trust policy, which says always verified, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And most importantly, it also has the defense in depth concept. So from email security to data loss prevention technology to conditional access, so access identity and access management technologies, multiple ways how you can secure your Copilot journey. So if we think about what are the kind of most critical things to do, so we have just, what I've just went through is like surprisingly comprehensive, although on one slide, but how do you get started? The most important thing is that you need to understand what is your most critical data, because once you go on that path of data security, it can become a very long path. It will most likely be a continuous process to maintain that good data security policy. But the most important thing is to understand what is the most critical for you. And then also, once you understand that, you are able to create proper security controls around it. Another strategic point is to actually foster that culture of responsible AI usage. So basically having guidelines for people when rolling out Copilot, that what is the most productive use of your Copilot, and what is, let's say, less desirable use of Copilot. So this is something that not too many companies have, but if you have been running a pilot for, let's say, half a year or 1 year, I think you will have already determined very good practices. And if your security team has been involved, most likely they will also have something to add on that, let's say, responsible or productive AI usage manual, if you will. And then again, as with securing anything, zero trust is the way to go, and Copilot is no exception. So you need to extend that zero trust journey to securing your Copilot as well. And from tactical perspective, there are quick wins that you can do. You can harden your Copilot. So you can, for example, tell Copilot what SharePoint sites can get indexed and what cannot. So if you know that you have, for example, migrated, or you have just purchased a company and you're migrating everything into one SharePoint, you at least know that what could you exclude, so those would not get indexed. So this is something that can be done. You can exclude also search, some specific search items, but also something that would need to be done, and this is again a feature of Microsoft Purview, is to perform e-discovery. So once you understand what are the most critical data that you have in your organization, you can perform an e-discovery to find where the data is and how it gets accessed, how it gets used. And from there, you can start figuring out what those security controls could be. And those will be reflected in labels, as well as obviously with labels, you have those security controls. Will it be something that is a warning sign will be thrown if someone is using data that they perhaps should not be using in any way, or when, for example, sharing outside of organization, should it be a warning message or should it be a blocking event? But also right now, if you look at, for example, Microsoft, there is a preview of something called data security management for AI, which Uros will discuss in a bit. So if you look at how Microsoft is working, they're constantly evolving their technologies, other security technologies, to make it easy to use their AI services in a secure fashion. And obviously, we already went through that information protection and data loss prevention controls. So you can have all sorts of capabilities there. Like if it is a highly confidential data, you would, for example, automatically label it as confidential data. So I'm writing a Word document. I will put, for example, social security number. Upon saving the document, a label gets applied, which would be internal confidential or whatever is the perfect wording for that label. But also, if it gets shared outside of organization, it can be encrypted. So the sharing, let's say the action is possible, but the data gets encrypted, so it cannot be opened by a third party. Or should it be blocked, or should there be a warning sign that lets the user to decide whether the action that he's performing, whether he thinks it's a legit action or not. And last but not least, there should be a minimum security posture. And in this particular case, the minimum security posture should be at the very minimum: email security, identity and access governance, as well as data security, which is Purview. Surprisingly, this is the first time I believe I'm saying that endpoint security is not a priority for secure usage of AI, because the attack scenarios that I've just explained, they do not involve customer laptops at all. They don't involve user endpoints at all. It is an email compromise followed by prompting, and unless there is a conditional access policy that requires a compliant device with a compliant user, then basically those device security, there's not much you will do with that in securing your Copilot journey. But overall, obviously, endpoint security is extremely important, and it should be part of everyone's minimum security posture. So yeah, this has been a quick run through of where we are with AI, what are the challenges associated with AI and Copilot use, what are some specific attacks that can be applied by an internal user, either maliciously or by accident, but also by an external adversary, and then some minimum tips on what you should consider when starting your wide-scale deployments of Copilot. Thank you. Alex,
Thank you.
back to you.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Yeah, I was listening to you, and I was really happy when you said that we can actually get some data blocked or encrypted, or ask the person who's asking for this data if they should be watching this. So I want to underline this, that there is some green or positive light in the tunnel, but it's good that you're making making us aware of the possible threats. And here I wanted to ask you, because many times you use the words critical data, confidential data, sensitive data, and now I'm thinking, do we know which data it is in our company? Can you give us some examples? Specific ones?
It will be very different, highly likely very different by different companies. But obviously, the regulations dictate a lot. So, for example, private information, health information should be something that it should be considered as a sensitive information, right? So that's one thing. Any type of trade, secrets, IP, that should be obviously treated as critical data, which again and financial reports should be considered as critical data, obviously, because especially if the company is publicly listed on a stock exchange. So those things should be at the very minimum considered as sensitive data. But if we want to be kind of a, let's say, draw more of a high level picture, sensitive data should be considered, in my opinion, data that is considered to be sensitive under any regulation that one company adheres to. So that's one. And then obviously data that makes the company run. So that data that is required for
any operational, let's say, data.
I would say it's IP. Even if operations are down, they can be brought up. But if a Coca-Cola recipe, for example, gets stolen, that's a bigger problem.
Okay, well, I've seen the trend that, some angry employees actually put on TikTok these recipes. So that's another thing. Okay, it's actually interesting that you mentioned this, because I must tell you, I had even a situation where on another, let's say, professional email, I got an offer of buying health data of
Wow.
some specific institutions, and I was like, wow, you're actually writing an email about this to me. It was an official email, so I guess that the health data, as I heard, is actually very, very worthy to trade nowadays. Okay. For now, we don't have any questions, but I would like to remind you, if you do have questions, anything comes up to you, maybe you have some comments, suggestions, something that happened to you with data security, let us know. Let's keep this webinar interactive. We're nearly 100 people. We asked you if you use sensitivity labels. You see, it's even a difficult word to say. And guess what, Alexander? 4 people said they do out of nearly
Wow.
100. And
Yeah.
one person made a sad face, so I guess you don't. And the others are still wondering. Maybe you got time. Fortunately, now our next speaker will show you how to actively monitor your AI tools like Copilot. He will show you how to limit oversharing sensitive data through also Copilot. He'll show you how to block people who shouldn't have access to your sensitive data. And he will show you how to classify your data. And I'm, of course, now talking about our next speaker, Uros Babic. We know the red flags already from Alexander. So, Uros, we need some live demo on Microsoft Purview to be better data protectors. Over to you.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, Alex, for the great presentation. And that is amazing introduction for our practical work for today, because we are using Microsoft Purview solution to mitigate, to manage many risks associated in organization. But one of the biggest risks for today is artificial intelligence usage. How to implement corresponding protection, how to implement governance control, because we are facing a lot of dark data in day-to-day operation. And how we stopped this and mitigate risk, prevent with different type of policy. That is our focus. And Microsoft Purview data security posture management for AI is actually new feature in order to provide insight in the different policy to control for AI application. And you can see in this dashboard actually data security posture management with a set of a lot of capability, and you can safely adopt AI without having to choose between productivity and protection. That is very important because we have insight and analytic in our AI. In our organization, we are ready to use different policy to protect data in order to prevent many data loss, oversharing, and AI problem. That is very important with the point of view Copilot for Frixis 5. And data assessment, that is something new, because you can identify it, you can remediate, you can monitor potential oversharing of data. And that is good example. I prepare some data assessment for all of us. I create assessment, choose of data sources and users who want to access. I evaluate the data. About 20 hours, it is easy to finish some report and apply a fix in order to limit Microsoft Copilot access to sensitive data, apply a label, apply a retention policy to sites and data, and that is important. actually, I can go now in some of a feature of assessment, and when I create some assessment in order to see some oversharing for the week of this month, I reveal some scan for sensitive data, and in the first column I can see what is my data source. That is some SharePoint sites. I can see total items, I can see all of this category, and of course I can see a sensitive information type detected. That is very important. And when I go in some sensitive information here for specific site, I can see what I can protect from, and I give all overview and recommendation from Microsoft in order to use Microsoft Purview data loss prevention policy to limit access for any files in my organization with sensitive label. Why are we using sensitive label? Värä mentioned that is very important for our data protection, for data classification, and we are using in a specific scenario. I will explain during this presentation, but you can click on in the monitor tab and see all of this feature regarding share with the specific people, share externally, who is share organization wide, and etc. And that is actually very great approach now to conduct data assessment, oversharing assessment for our data in order to see what is protected and what is not protected. Do you have any sensitive information type detected, data not scanned, and everything? That is actually the first steps. The second steps, we can go with some policy. And when I go in policy, I can see actually some type of policy for data loss prevention, from insider risk management. I can see also policy, for example, for communication compliance part, because I can control unethical behavior in my Copilot 365. I can see Microsoft 365 Copilot interaction here, and I can see I can detect actually some sensitive info add in on all sites, artificial intelligence and adapted policy in using artificial intelligence assessment. And of course, the third part is insider risk policy. We must control, detect risky AI usage, detect when user visits some artificial intelligence sites internally, but with some potential suspicious and malicious activity. And I can start, for example, here because I can go now in some practical work, and I see some document with the credit card, and I assign here confidential, because I'm using sensitive label for that part, and I'm using draft with the Copilot, for example, the reference name, and that is actually confidential information. That is a prompt. That is very important. My instruction contain one and more sensitive file, and I try to generate this file and create graph. Copilot don't generate high quality context for this, because I have confidential information. I have prompt for this, and when I tried, for example, some different scenario here with my account, I can create some mail, and this is actually my Uros.Babic Crayon demo cloud account, and I try to send message on my company account, and I can define some subject that is confidential. For example, Microsoft 365 Copilot. never mind. And I can go and insert some attached file with confidential proposal. That is our previous file. What is important in home part, I can see my policy. I can see my actually confidential sensitive label for that. And when I try to send this file, I can go and yes, message is blocked. Message is confidential. That is very I stopped oversharing information of my company outside my company with actually sensitive label in combination with DLP policy. And when I click in summary from my Copilot, Copilot Inform, yes, we are using conflict in your organization, message not delivering for all repeats because that is actually sensitivity. Where we can see that is very important. I can go now in solution and I can go in information protection and I can go now in some policy here and I can see some publish policy that is actually confidential. My confidential, I can edit my policy and how I create some sensitive label in order to publish. I can use some specific admin units to create it in correlation with my enter ID and restrictive policy with specific set of group of people on users. The next tab is users in group. I can control and my user is actually now include of this policy, what I previously explained. I can, in policy setting, define configuration settings for my label included for this policy. For example, users must provide justification to remove label, require users to apply label, and etc. And I can go now in the full setting for documents, and that is confidential, apply, and I can using apply default label from my email, from my attachment, and automatically apply label what is actually Värä mentioned in your presentation. Default label is also can be used. That is not my focus now. From my meeting and calendar, from my Fabric and Power BI, and I can define name on the policy, and that is the finish. Well, first steps. I create some protection policy like that. And after that, I can publish this confidential policy. And of course, this is consequence. And now I can see my alert, low severity alert from has been triggered because I setting my DLP policy with that. When we see this part, I can go in solution and I can go in data loss prevention and I can go in data loss prevention policy. And I prepare this confidential DLP policy, how we create this confidential DLP policy. I create DLP policy to detect sensitive data in order to prevent oversharing in my organization. I can define, and that is a place where I apply this policy. For example, Exchange Mail, for SharePoint sites, for OneDrive, for my device. It is very important part. Our device must be in onboarding in portal. We are using actually some local policy for onboarding our device, but that is prerequisite. It must be onboarded. That is automatically our managed device. And when I go in the next option, I can define some rule in the policy. That is very important. And how we explain this rule very briefly. Define condition. What is my condition? For all contexts shared from my Microsoft 365 outside my organization and contents contain some sensitive label like this. What is consequence? Block only people outside our organization. I can use notification, and that is, I can create some incident report. I can create some predefined distributive group or security group for this incident, and after that I can define some policy mode. That's, I turn this policy on in immediately, but in many situations this policy must be propagated in next 24 hours. That is very important part, and how we create, that is it. And that is a consequence. Yes, I can use this confidential DLP policy with combination with my sensitive label. I receive the first steps, notification, but most important thing, I blocked message, and this is actually severity of my message. That is one part of this work. I can use, for example, very interesting part regarding communication compliance policy, because I can edit my policy. For example, I wish to control some unethical behavior in my organization and using some, for example, Microsoft 365 Copilot interaction now. And actually, when I click here, I can edit my policy in description. That is control actually what are you doing. I can use this policy from all users here in my tenant. I can use Microsoft 365 Copilot interaction with Copilot, and I can control communication in all direction, inbound, outbound, internal, and I can use trainable classifier for this, for prompt, for detect material, for harassment. I can define many other trainable classifier for violence, from protecting material. I can use optical character recognition for this part, and after that I can control this this very important part. The last part is actually some insider risk policy. I can control what is risky inside on my organization, and of course I can use this type of policy. For example, I can edit some policy, and I can control and investigate risk here regarding this specified type of policy. I could choose policy template, of course, and you can see data leaks with DLP policy, device my speed board, and I can connect some cloud application here, and I can use for all users in groups. I can use excluded option for this, for specify users in groups, and I can use some indicator. Some users try to browse and upload malicious file for the web, control what is download from Microsoft 365 location, what is potential data exfiltration, how we control all of this process. I can turn on many other indicators in this part in order to control with insider risk policy what some potential malicious user try to delete SharePoint folders, try to delete Teams communication, and many others, and control, and that is also part our and I can choose trigger it from event. I can trigger it indicator what I turn off or turn on in my scope of control, and that is amazing policy for our work. Actually, all of this activity I can control in Activity Explorer. With time, I can review all process with a great dashboard, great graph, chart time. I can see all my interaction here with the point of view. And finally, report is a very important part. I can see total interaction over time with the Microsoft Copilot 365 in the last 30 days. I can control, and I receive also some very good recommendation from Microsoft. Okay, you can control an ethical behavior. You are turned on sensitive label for sensitive in order to prevent some oversharing, 45 for data security, but you are not started with some AI regulation, how to protect sensitive data reference with the Copilot response, oversharing, many other features. And after that, when I click here, I give steps for Microsoft, how to implement, go in assessment in order to increase my data security score. And that is very important for our audit in our company, how to reduce and minimize potential risk with confidential, highly confidential data, and of course, with the point of view compliance. The compliance team is not only technical person. Compliance team must be assist of many HR people in our organization with the law part of people who is expert. And after that, we must define what is our critical data. Alex mentioned, maybe it's the whole data, maybe some personal identification number, maybe some financial data, but we must very good know what is our and how works our data flow, and that is prerequisite for our very good implementation and face and struggle with a lot of direct data. And after that, definitely we have win-win situation in our work. That is all from my side.
Thank you very much, Uros. A lot of information in the morning. If you do have any questions to Uros, please ask them in the chat. Alexander, you got some insights as I can see after Uros's demonstration.
Oh, I think the demonstration is great. Thank you, Uros, and thank you for explaining so much in terms of what can be done and how it works in real action. Having a real life demo is always so much more powerful than any type of slide material. So thank you for that. I would maybe just to add one thing there. So I think that it's very good to note that this is a process, and for a big organization, this process takes time. And this process of, let's say, data security and data governance is not something that is done in a day. It requires multiple stakeholders. It requires technical implementation, proper design, proper process development across organization. It's not a security problem. It's an organization challenge that one needs to just take by its horns and deal with it. However, you don't need to build a castle from the very beginning. And as Uros mentioned, there are quick wins that one can do, and that is by identifying what is the most sensitive for you. It's better to start with that and define most critical security controls and data protection controls or information protection controls to apply, and continue to build on top of that when it comes to processes, when it comes to additional labels that might be needed. So if you have been discussing about this with any, let's say, security company, chances are you have been given an instruction that this will be any type of, let's say, data security project to use Copilot in a safe way. It's a 1-year project, requires a ton of design, a ton of change management, and this is one way of doing that. But there are certainly low-hanging fruits that are applicable everywhere at any given time that requires pretty little information from the client to already get to that minimum viable, let's say, security, if you will, and protection when it comes to avoiding oversharing of critical data from your organization via Copilot or via any other means. And that is something that we think one should start with. And obviously, there is let's say, a proper, framework that we developed ourselves, to make sure that this data security journey is not overwhelming, but there's actionable results in short time and they are continuous. And based on our countless implementations of Microsoft Purview, we are sticking with this type of framework. So continuous results, smaller iterations, and focusing on prioritizing things.
Okay, so as I get it, yeah, thank you very much, Alexander, for that comment. Taking your data security policy step by step. Do not feel overwhelmed at all. And actually right now, but if you do feel a little bit overwhelmed, I got, before I ask you some questions that I have, one question for each of you still. I want to tell our webinar attendees, we have, as you've seen in the chat, a wonderful opportunity to book a free consultation with our experts. And this is unique because it's only you attendees of this webinar that have this chance to talk to Alexander or Uros if you want to start your data security journey, or maybe you want to update it, or maybe you are already in the process and you need some more information. You can book a consultation with them. You've got 25-minute slots. Go to the link, book your consultation now, because we have a limited amount of time for it. There's only Uros and Alexander here, but do use this opportunity for sure. And I want to go back a little bit to Uros, because Uros, you showed us a lot of features of Purview. And if I was just starting this whole journey of data security through Copilot, and maybe I just, installed Purview and I'm looking how it's working, what would you say are the top essential features of it that I maybe should start with?
Yes, of course. That is actually, Preview have actually many great features. And I can use, for example, data loss prevention to help protect my critical data, sensitive information. I can use information protection in order to classify data with different label, protect database of sensitivity. I can use compliance manager. That is very interesting part, because Preview compliance manager help organization in order to control compliance posture, manage regulatory requirements. Many company works with ISO 27000, but many company is PCI DSS compliance. Many company use some cybersecurity assessment with cybersecurity benchmark, different type of standard, and that is how great way how to reduce compliance risk. And I can use, for example, data catalog. That is unified catalog in order to help define some source, define data integrity, define governance of our data, and data map. It is also amazing feature. I can register and scan my data sources. I create a map of my data instance, and that is definitely help in order to detect what is the sensitive data, provide end-to-end data protection with the point of view data preview, but many other feature it is involved, and that is actually my focus. What is
that's your focus and your choice. Yeah, I hope you enlisted that. Actually, dear experts, we do have some questions that are, I think, quite important. Gatis is asking, what kind of license organizations need to use all Purview? In a sense, probably what license we need to use Purview for the organization, yeah? As I understand well.
Yes, we can use, yes, well, Alex, please.
Yeah, sure. I can start maybe. So if you want to use the full Purview suite, there are a couple ways of doing that. One is purchase Purview as standalone. So that is definitely one option. Another one is to utilize it as part of your E5 stack. So if you think about what E5 contains security features and then also Purview. So it's called E5 compliance. So let's say the most comprehensive stack will be available for you by a standalone Purview purchase or E5 compliance. Then you have, for example, Business Premium. You have E3, And within those, you already have some limited Purview features that you can utilize for your office environment already.
Okay, so that's
Uros, would you like to add something to it?
No, it is actually very important, and that is correct. But other side is our permission and role. You must be, for example, this our work compliance administrator with role-based access control for our data security posture management, and other prerequisites, global admin and security admin. But please, you are using global admin rights with privileged identity management. That is our focus, and Alex mentioned in this presentation, enough you have 5 global admin, and don't need more, because we are using privileged identity management. I am Exchange admin for tomorrow, for example, for the next 6 hours, and I can use this role, and that is actually a principle of minimum privilege and the last privilege. And after that, my role when expire, I don't have any time from my job, because this is not need. That is very, very good with the point of view protect from many potential malicious activity from hackers.
Ah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
yes,
that's very interesting that you can get that role temporary.
Yes, of course. Yes. A role temporary, role permission with combination with alliances. That is our win combination.
Great. Okay, that's great news. Think about it. We have one more question that's pretty interesting. Volodymyr is asking, when creating a policy, one of the sections is about admin units. How and when is the best to use this option? Who's going to take that question?
Yes. We can actually use this option in order to identify some role and admins, but we can add some users group in device in administrative units. It's helped to manage specific resources without affecting the entire organization, and after that you can use and assign different type role. When we use these administrative units, for example, delegated some regional and department administration, restrict administration scopes with the point of view administrators. Administrators can only manage users and groups and device with some units, enforcing security and reducing risk of errors. Manage specific policy, apply policy and manage some specific policy in order to be subset of users and device. This is useful for organization with diverse needs across different type of rules. And by using administration unit, you can streamline management, enforce security, be assured that administrative task can handle very good and in efficient way with specific part of our organization. And I think that is good answer for this question.
Okay, thank you very much. Detailed one from our expert. And I do remind you that you can still sign up for a booking with Uros or Alexander if you have more questions, because unfortunately we're running out of time. We've actually run out of time, but they have time for you. 25-minute slots. You can ask all the questions you have. Free consultation for the attendees of this webinar. I want to wrap it up. So to wrap it up, Uros and Alexander, could you give us like some one-liner that you think you want to install in our heads this Wednesday morning for the next weeks and months, or maybe even for 2025, because the year is ending? Something about data security for us to remember for 2025, Alexander?
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important thing, if I were to kind of want to everyone to remember, is that remember you're dealing with a groundbreaking technology when it comes to Copilot, and anything related to how to use it in a secure way. There's a lot of capabilities out there already now, and they will improve. So you need to be on top of that. Your security team needs to be on top of that. So understand and learn security. let's say, Copilot, or how to use Copilot in a secure way. And the other thing, which is specific to data security, which is the, I would say, most essential part of using Copilot in a secure way, is prioritize towards what is your most critical stuff, digital data. Prioritize. That will bring you that will help you a long way in adding any type of security features, be it security posture management, be it data security. You need to understand what is the most critical data to you.
Okay, yeah, that's a good soul-searching thoughts for the end of the year and the beginning of the new one. Uros, how about you? What is your data security wish for us for 2025?
It is definitely we must stay with the different compliance and regulation, with the relevant industry regulation and standard such GDPR, such PCI DSS, and many other regulation. But key is in regular training and awareness our employee. And actually conduct a regular training session to keep employee informed about importance of data classification, about how to apply the policy correctly, how to reduce many sensitive risks in organization. That is a central question and task for all us in the technical field who is in focus in security. And definitely because we have a lot of sophisticated attack now and in day-to-day operation, and definitely we must be very, very proactive in what is also important from my side, we must educate it also not only end users, we must educate it administrators and everything, and stay to be up to date with the new technology and everything, because we are facing a lot of risk with the point of view. Okay, artificial intelligence help us, but how we protect, because we are facing with a lot of big data. We are facing with a lot of Internet of Things data in the future, and that is actually challenge. And how to protect this part, it is task for all of this technical person with the point of security in the next point of time.
Okay, thank you very much. So as you say, more digital options for us means more awareness of our data security, definitely. Thank you to our experts, Uros, Babic, and Alexander Värä from Crayon. And I want to remind you, you will get a recording of this meeting in a dedicated email. And also, still, you can sign up for the free consultations with our experts. Thank you very much. And
thank you so much.
I hope we have a good 2025 without any data security issues.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.